Now, in nearly 10 days, President-elect Donald Trump will take office and will begin undoing a lot of what President Obama has done. Now, that, of course, includes dismantling President Obama's signature healthcare reform law, the Affordable Care Act. Now, understandably, President Obama is a little bit salty, as are, of course, the 20 million people who are going to lose their health insurance. But instead of just blaming the Republicans and the conservative media for peddling outright fake stories, for example, does anybody remember death panels, killing grandma, et cetera, right? And blaming health insurance prices on the law instead of insurance companies that, of course, have basically very little in the way of price controls. President Obama decides instead to put some of this blame on the left and, of course, onto Bernie Sanders. Now, at a town hall event with Vox Media, President Obama said that liberals like former Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders had contributed to the program's unpopularity. I have to add, of course, by pointing out some of the real issues in the law and wanting to expand it by turning it into a single-payer system. Now, he said that in the dissatisfied column are a whole bunch of Bernie Sanders supporters who wanted single-payer. The problem is that they think Obamacare is a failure. Or it's not that they think Obamacare is a failure. The problem is that they don't think it went far enough and then it left too many people still uncovered. Well, yeah, it's not that we think that it didn't go far enough. It didn't. It didn't go far. Plain and simple. There are still millions of people that are left uncovered. People that still have high deductibles and premiums. And look, you can point that out, and you can still be in favor of the law, and you can still support the law, and you can still support the idea of expanding the law and fixing the law and actually making it better.
Which is exactly what Bernie Sanders was talking about.
Exactly.
And Hillary Clinton's quote opposition to that, her playing the middle of the fence, was to go on a yelling tangent about how universal health care is never going to be possible.
Ever.
She sounded like a lunatic, yelling that universal health care was never ever going to happen. It was never ever going to happen. And that sound clip was used over and over again. So, I mean, it was just the neoliberals playing politics and failing miserably, and now they're blaming Bernie Sanders for all of the propaganda opposition to the ACA. Is like blaming Richard Dawkins for creationists. It doesn't make any logical sense. It's like saying like somebody that's trying to explore an issue and better an issue is responsible for people that buy into nonsense.
But this is the thing, when you get with, when you're dealing with the neoliberal Democratic establishment, and, if you want to say dealing with the Republican establishment as well, but we don't really deal with that because, we're liberals. Now, what Obama is essentially saying is that, look, hey, don't criticize my law. You can't criticize my law. You need to bow your head and support the healthcare plan that I put into place. You must call it perfect. You can't criticize it whatsoever, because if you do, well, you're going to hurt its popularity. Well, maybe what you should have done is put a more popular plan in place in the first place. Or at least tried to fight for that plan, which you did not. You did not fight for a public option. You dropped that in order to get Republican support. And this is what frustrates me so much, not just about President Barack Obama. He has a history of doing this as well. But with Hillary Clinton, with a lot of the Democratic establishment, they keep trying to reach out to Republicans. They keep trying to reach out to the so-called moderate Republican in order to try to get their support, in order to try to get their vote. And you know what you know what happens? It doesn't work. They don't get that support. Because they look at a Republican and they look at a Democrat trying to be Republican light. What are they going to pick? If they're already conservative, what are they going to do? They're going to pick the Republican every single time. And this is why we end up getting stuck with not only bad policy, we also get stuck with less Democrats. I mean, this goes into why Barack Obama, under his watch, the Democratic Party has essentially hemorrhaged. Okay, it is dying. It is getting its ass kicked at every single level of government. I mean, local governments, under Barack Obama, we not only lost the Senate, we lost the House, Donald Trump is going to be elected, okay, or he's already been elected. He's going to be president, okay, and we also have, what is it, 69 out of 99 state legislatures are now under Republican control, thanks to Barack Obama. I know it's not all his fault, obviously, but seriously, it is his leadership. It's like he didn't help the Democratic Party whatsoever in the places where it needed it. As long as Barack Obama won, well, everything's fine. Because I'm still president at the top. Well, what happens when you leave? Now we're stuck with a completely full Republican government. And it's going to hurt a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. And he certainly didn't do as much in those first 2 years as he should have. Not only that, but, I wanted to point this out upon watching, or upon reading that article. Barack Obama himself emphasized similar criticisms to what Bernie Sanders said. Barack Obama, it actually happened in the WTF podcast, Mark Maron's podcast, when Barack Obama made an appearance on that podcast. It got a lot of news when it happened, and it was a phenomenal podcast. I recommend everybody listening to it if you haven't. He straight up says, they bring up the Affordable Care Act, he straight up says he would have loved to have started with the universal system, but, the reality of the situation, which is hard to dispute, is that about a sixth of our economy relies on these for-profit middlemen, meaning you got to phase them out a little slower than that. So he knew that the ACA was going to be a baby step in that direction, which it has been. So, Barack Obama himself, he's basically saying we need to kind of walk in step and just abandon all logic when it comes to this. Meanwhile, that has failed miserably. What probably wouldn't have failed miserably would be a platform, because a lot of polls show that most Americans do want some type of universal system. Most Americans want that. When you get over the fear-mongering and the propaganda of socialized medicine, most people, when you break it down for them constructively, they do favor a system like that. An income-based system or a system where everyone gets covered no matter what. Most Americans do favor that. So, to adopt a platform where it's like, we're going to take what we have now and we're going to take it further. And the people that are getting the short end of the stick because of this plan, you're getting the short end of the stick because of the insurance industries and because of some of the flaws in the plan. We're going to fix those flaws so that everybody gets health insurance, everybody gets covered, and people are paying their fair share because of it. And yeah, some of the highest income people, they're going to pay a little more than the lowest, yes, but it's going to be fair, and we're still going to be treated better. Everyone pays more and gets less. We do more than that than every other industrialized nation. This is going to eliminate that. It's going to be a much better structure. Most people favor that.
And unfortunately, there are people in the health insurance industry, the CEOs, the shareholders and stuff, and the lobbyists that don't want us to go in that direction because they continue to make money off of the system as is.
Of course.
And
of course, absolutely.
But the problem is that this is an unsustainable system. It always has been. When you center something like health on profit, you're going to run into an unsustainable system, and it's going to be inaccessible for obviously some of the lowest people in society. And I don't mean lowest as in bad. I mean lowest as in they are unable to afford that level of care that should be universal. There should be a base standard that everybody gets the same type of same type of care, same level of care. And that should be basic. It's right now we're not doing that. We weren't doing that before, and it looks like we're heading back to doing less than we were before the ACA, and that's a disaster. And look, you got to blame what you said about Hillary Clinton before is kind of spot on. So you kind of have to blame her in a way. And you also have to blame Obama for pinning so much hope on Hillary Clinton's status quo, because honestly, they didn't think that they were going to lose, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. And Obama, hitched the wagon up to Hillary Clinton and said, okay, you're going to continue my policies, so I'm going to back you, even though it has been shown, poll after poll, that you're not going to do very well against Donald Trump, that it's either going to be close or you're going to lose or whatever. I'm still going to try to try to continue my legacy with you. And we in the DNC, we're going to push for Hillary Clinton in every single way that we can, put our finger on, our thumb on the scale, mess sometimes in states, mess with voter registrations or whatever, and do anything that we can to get Hillary Clinton elected. And that's why they fought so much against Bernie Sanders, by the way. They wanted to get her elected, and they wanted to continue these same policies, and they didn't actually think that Trump was going to go through with this and actually get elected and start dismantling the President Obama's legacy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then people go and they accuse Bernie Sanders of being all in it for himself. Meanwhile, it's like we're going to do a story later where Bernie Sanders defends Barack Obama in a situation, and deservedly so. It was a justified defense. But then here you have Barack Obama, basically playing politics and saying like, "Oh, it's your fault we're divided," by pointing out these obvious flaws, by pursuing something that a lot of progressive wants and most Americans want. I mean, a platform saying we're going to fix what's wrong with the Affordable Care Act would win some people on the right too. Yeah. To make it out like it was a fix-all was a huge political mistake, especially when you're going to have a soundbite where you're screaming like a lunatic.
But again,
I know you saw the soundbite I'm talking about. I'm sure a lot of viewers have seen that as well. That was used against her by Trump and by the media, and it completely backfired. It just completely backfired. And the Affordable Care Act was never meant to be a fix all. Even Barack Obama himself acknowledged that. And to try to blame Bernie Sanders for his declining popularity instead of all these other factors, a lot of which are unjustified, death panels, stuff like that, right? It's just incredibly short-sighted.
And then, look, another reason that I think maybe it's not just politics, but it's about his legacy. This guy's going to see everything that he's done essentially undone by Donald Trump. And so, he's I think in a way he's kind of lashing out a little bit. I think in a way. Because look, you'd be upset if your legacy was destroyed as well. But instead of blaming the right people, you blame the wrong people. The people who are actually trying to fix healthcare to make it actually better for everyone else. And there's the mistake.
Oh, yeah. It'd be a hell of a legacy to say that, hey, I implemented policy that was a catalyst to a universal healthcare system.
Exactly.
I made that first step possible. That's a hell of a legacy. And if that all gets undone, and that's what the Affordable Care Act was meant to be. So if that all gets undone, it's not the fault of the people that wanted to bring that to fruition.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.